This is Glow in the Dark Radio. The Science Fiction Podcast, with original independent science fiction, written and performed by Mike Luoma, with music by Kevin MacLeod. The Vatican Assassin Trilogy and The Adventures of Alibi Jones by Mike Luoma are available in ebook, trade paperback, and audiobook wherever you find your books online. Get links and details at glowinthedarkradio.com. This is the Science Fiction Podcast, Glow in the Dark Radio. I'm your host, your narrator, and your writer, Mike Luoma. And I've got two big old chapters on this week's episode of Glow in the Dark Radio. It's a double-sized episode, double wide. That's because there's no episode over the next 2 weeks. We've got Christmas next week, New Year's the week after. I'm taking both those weekends off, so I'm not going to be back until the weekend of January 7th and 8th. So you're going to have to make this tide yourself over just a little bit. Got chapter 14, which I think is about 15 minutes long, and chapter 15, which is about 20 minutes long. So we do have over 35 minutes of story on this episode. We've got BC on his way to Fortune Station. That's pretty much what's going on this episode. He's on the Paladin 4, piloted by Captain Adrian Longeau. He's a good holy man. Ooh, that's Sky Pilot. I don't know, did I do that on purpose? Maybe at some level? Sometimes music, well, all the time, music pops into my head. I reference life through music a lot of times, just in my day-to-day living, whether I want to or not. But yeah, I was just like, oh, he's a good holy man. Ooh, Sky Pilot. It works, kind of. I don't know. Old Animals tune? Okay, I digress. Yes. That's what's up ahead as we get into two chapters from Vatican Assassin. This is the 15th anniversary edition. There are no voice cameos in these two chapters, but there's a really great one coming up from Dave Robison as the Light. The guy that BC has been assigned to kill, and who he's traveling on the Paladin 4 to Fortune Station to do that, to do his assassination works. That's coming up in chapter 16, so we got to get there first, and that's what we're doing on this episode with these two big chapters. In book news, I do have a new book to tell you about, although it is not science fiction. It is a new nonfiction book, Ancient Stone Mysteries of New England. It has over 500 black and white photos, over 370 pages. It's a chronicle of my journey into investigating stonework in the New England forests and the woods. It's a paperback book only right now for $39.95, which you can get at Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, at Lulu.com, and slowly but surely in a lot of other places as distribution kicks in. That is out as of this weekend, the brand new book, Ancient Stone Mysteries of New England. If you want to find out more, you can also go to ancientstonemysteries.com. Back in the world of science fiction and this podcast, I want to thank my patrons who support me on Patreon and help keep this podcast going. If you're enjoying the podcast, you should thank them too, because they help keep this podcast going. So big thank you to my patrons as we wind down on 2022. You've kept me going. You've helped me keep doing this as we've gone through really bad economic times. So thank you again for all you do. Now, if you want to become a patron, if you want to help, you can do that a few different ways. There's 3 different levels. There's $2 a month, $5 a month, or $10 a month. And the way you do that is by heading over to patreon.com facebook.com/glow-in-the-dark radio. And you can sign up there. Or just find out more if you want to get, more information, of course. Also in science fiction book news, there is a sale underway. The Smashwords End of the Year sale is on. Your chance to stock up on ebooks through January 1st. Giving some of them away. Vatican Assassin, the 15th anniversary edition, is free. Alibi Jones, the first novel in the series, is free. I've also made Alibi Jones and the Sunrise of Her free for this sale, so you can head over there and get those ebooks all for free. And the new Vatican Assassin Trilogy 3rd edition is now 50% off during the sale. So that is just $2.49. And the Alibi Jones Chronological Omnibus is also 50% off for $2.49. All of this is at Smashwords. So just go to smashwords.com and look for me, Mike Luoma, Mikeluoma. Or go to my site, mikeluoma.com, or glowinthedarkradio.com, and follow the link to Smashwords. That's all for book news. Up next, as promised, 2 big chapters of Vatican Assassin, the 15th anniversary edition, the special audio version, coming up next on Glow in the Dark Radio.
Wake up, go to work. Work. Come home. Eat dinner. Rot your brain out. Go to bed. Lather. Rinse. Repeat. Are you tired of an old humdrum life? Tired of things that just weigh you down and depress you? Wouldn't you rather just focus on things that are awesome? Tune into Nutty Bites. Find out what's awesome. Nutty Bites. nimlas.org/blog.
Now here's Chapter 14 of Vatican Assassin on Glow in the Dark Radio. Sunday is the 3rd day of their trip. It's been quiet, no other traffic around, but BC wakes with a small bit of panic. He's got none of the books a real, proper priest should have to read the liturgy Lonju wants him to perform. He's got no clue. Lonju has left him to himself, mostly, but he's expecting BC to perform this liturgy for him today. It doesn't look like we're going to get there early. That was my only hope. BC walks up to the common area. Lonju has thrown a white sheet over the table and pushed it over in front of his shrine. He's cleared the chairs away to the side. I thought you could use this as an altar. It's not consecrated or anything, but it's fine by me if you're okay with it. Sure, no, that's fine. I'm a little embarrassed, though, Mr. Lonju. I've come to realize I haven't brought any of my liturgical books with me. Lonju is surprised, but nonplussed. I've got the liturgy we need stored on the ship's computer. Hold on just a sec, and I'll print it out for you to use. He walks over to a wall-mounted screen, calls up the texts, prints it out, and brings it to BC. Here you go, Father. New United Reform Liturgy. I keep a copy handy. Sometimes say it for myself when I'm traveling on Sundays. BC isn't even sure where to start. He takes the papers and stands behind the table in front of the shrine. He smooths the papers out on the makeshift altar. This should do. Let's see now. He raises his arms, and a loud alarm sounds. What the? Proximity alert, Father. Hold on, I'll be right back. Lonju runs to the ladder and disappears up into the bridge. BC follows, climbs up to see what's going on. Lonju looks back at him from the pilot's chair on the left, then looks back to the controls and shouts over his shoulder. We've got company, Father. It's a UIN scout. They aren't hailing us. We wouldn't know they were even there without the alarm being set off. That's not normal. Usually they at least hail you. Not a good sign. Oh, it looks like they're charging weapons. Hold on. BC is thrown forward, feels his stomach leap up through his chest as Lonju attempts evasive maneuvers. He's on the deck, in between the two flight chairs. "Hold on there, Father. We're only about 4 hours from Fortune Station. We're not on a direct route, so he probably doesn't know where we're going. They shouldn't care who we are or why we're here, but they're firing." BC is thrown sideways into the right side flight chair as he hears a boom and a resounding clang at the same time. "We're hit!" Lonju yells. "Returning fire!" BC pulls himself up and holds on to the back of the right flight chair, watching Lonju scramble to maneuver their ship around the UIN scout ship. Suddenly, the scout ship falls into view, large in the bridge viewport, as Lonju brings his ship up behind it. Lonju flips switches and hits buttons on the console as missiles and bright laser fire flashes away from the Paladin 4 towards the UIN scout. Bright orange blossoms flame up from the scout ship, blinding BC momentarily. "We hit him! Hold on!" Lonju maneuvers the ship up and to the right of the scout. As the ship banks, BC is thrown back and down through the hatch, flailing and falling all the way down to the common room floor. He's all right, just shaken up. He gets up and dusts himself off, checking for broken bones. Seems fine. Head hurts. There's a goose egg. Ouch. BC climbs back up the ladder and through the hatch into the bridge, where Lonju is working furiously to keep his ship together and out of harm's way. "They hit us again as we banked. We've lost some fuel, Father. Why don't you get back down to the common area? There's a fixed seat you can strap yourself into and an access area just behind the shrine. There's a computer with a view station there, wired into the bridge. We'll be able to talk, but you'll be safer than you are flapping around up here. Seal the hatch as you go, huh? Go on." BC climbs back down and seals the hatch. He goes over to the shrine and finds an access handle behind the gilded crucifix. The shrine itself is mounted to the door and moves aside with the door as BC opens the compartment. Another muffled boom, and BC suddenly finds himself on the ceiling of the small compartment. The artificial G must have been hit. Shit! Which way is down? Damn. Oh man, I don't want to be sick. Free fall, falling every which way all at once. Love it. BC pushes off from the ceiling and grabs the top of the chair as he floats down. He pulls himself down into the chair, straps himself in, and activates the computer. It swings up into place in front of him. He hears Lonju firing again, sees flashes on the view station, and hears Lonju from the speakers in front of him.
"We got him again. Critical hit, looks like. They're going down. Shit, they've still got firepower."
BC is surprised. He hasn't heard Lonju swear until now. Well! The ship is rocked backwards, like a giant hand just reached out, stopped them, and pushed them back. The screen in front of him goes to static. The lights dim. Everything is strangely silent. "Mr. Lonju?" BC tries the comm unit in front of him. No response. He unstraps himself from the chair. Moving slowly and cautiously in the zero-G, he opens the access door and floats out into the main room. The common area looks okay. Hard to tell in this dim emergency lighting. But we must have taken a big hit. I don't hear the engines. I hope that scout ship isn't coming around to finish the job. I gotta get back up to the bridge and check on Mr. Lonju. BC works his way hand over hand around the walls of the room until he gets to the recessed alcove and the hatch to the bridge. He floats up the ladder to the hatch. It looks strange to BC. It looks different. It's lower, bulging down. Shit indeed, Mr. Lonju. The small screen next to the door clears up from static to a self-test screen. The ship's systems must have taken a jolt. Maybe they'll come back online now. Wonder if I can get this hatch open. BC struggles with the hatch, trying to get the handle to budge, to get it to move. It's stuck. BC keeps trying to force it. He's thinking about going back to the stateroom for his hand laser when the screen next to the door beeps. BC reads the screen. Emergency, door sealed, 0 atmosphere on bridge. Shit indeed, Mr. Lonju. At least there are no more booms so far. Hopefully, Lonju disabled the scout ship before they got him. BC hears the Paladin 4's engines sputter back to life. They don't sound good, and there's no way we're still going in the right direction. Can't get back on the bridge. I wonder if there's any other way to fly this thing. BC floats down out of the alcove and hand over hands his way back around to the chair in the compartment behind the shrine. He straps himself back in. The computer has come back to life. He begins searching out how the ship's systems are controlled, trying to get control of the ship from the console he's on. After about 15 minutes, BC finds a way to transfer ship's controls to his terminal. He checks the engines, damaged but working. He checks the fuel. Just about gone. That's bad. He manages to set course corrections and points the ship toward Fortune Station. As more ship systems come back on, he tries to take a look around the ship. The main view screen cameras mounted front of the bridge are gone. He searches for other external viewers and finds one mounted on the top of the ship. He can see front and forward, but he can't see any of the ship itself to see what external damage has been done. The engines are even beginning to sound normal again, but BC worries about how little fuel remains to feed them. Got to save some fuel to maneuver in when I get to the station, so I can dock. Have to figure out how much to use for thrust. Shot in the dark, no scanners. Can't see much of anything visually either. Just gotta guess. Hope that's a good guess. BC saves about a quarter of his remaining fuel for maneuvering when he gets to the station, then pours what's left into a long, sustained burst, sending the ship in the general direction of Fortune Station. With the ship's artificial gravity disabled, the force of the thrust pushes BC flat back in his seat. He hangs on and watches the screen in front of him. I don't think I'll be riding back to the moon on this thing. Just get me there, that's all I ask. I hope that scout ship didn't get to call any of his friends. After almost 4 uneasy hours, Fortune Station finally looms in the console screen. Hello, Fortune Station. Old looking. Man, this place looks primitive. Fortune Station is about a mile long, made up of 2 fat ring sections, each about a quarter mile across, rotating in unison, half a mile apart, connected to each other by 4 major walkways. BC can't make out too many details. The station is mostly just a deep, unbroken, black silhouette against the stars. Docking. How do I dock this thing? Wish there was an automatic docking button. I've got to bring the ship in close and match the spin of the station first. Place looks like a couple of donuts with 4 styli poked through them. Big, fat, old, rusty donuts. Plain, no glaze. The far donut looks more lit up, so I'll line up on this closer, darker one. May be able to sneak in. We'll see. BC fires thrusters and orients the ship, facing the darker donut. He gets the ship spinning with the station, rotating slowly as they approach the donut hole. There are 2 corridors crisscrossing the actual hole, with a docking access in the middle. BC can see it on the screen in front of him as the ship approaches. The station looks still in front of him, the stars spinning around them. This camera is supposedly mounted above the docking hatch, so this is good. Ooh, don't look at the stars. Look at the station, not at the stars. Dizzying. The Paladin 4 is almost next to the station when he sees in the view screen that the hatch he's been aiming for is blown. Useless. Shit. If I remember the plans for this place, there are hatches out toward the rim of the donut on this side. I have to try to find one and dock. The rotation is going to make that tricky. He uses what little fuel he has left, firing maneuvering thrusters to line up with another hatch, still on this side of the donut, but down towards the edge, where there's a feeling of gravity created by the station's rotation. He starts to move the ship in towards the hatch, trying to keep down as rotation-induced gravity begins to exert its pull on the ship. I better line the ship up right, or I'll be walking across the walls or the ceiling. Red lights suddenly come on. The ship's computer warns. Collision alert, collision alert, collision alert. I know, I hear you, I know! BC gets the Paladin 4 to stop just short of impact. He can see the station's hatch looming large. He fires directional rockets to bring the ship in slower, slower. A loud, piercing metal-on-metal screech echoes off the ship's walls. Ouch! Not even close. Gotta back off? Try again. Almost no fuel. How many tries do I get? Let's find out. It takes 2 tries and a lot of scraping and bumping, but BC finally gets the Paladin 4 to dock with Fortune Station. Not the most graceful entrance. So much for sneaking in. Hope I didn't wake anybody up. Chapter 15. BC gathers his supplies together. Some food supplements, his hand laser, the station plans, the wrist-worn dart launcher, and the tranq darts. He straps on his weaponry and puts everything else into a small belt pack. He heads through the corridors of the Paladin 4 for the airlock in Fortune Station. BC takes a minute and figures out the docking controls at the hatch. He manages to get a docking collar in place, linking the ship to the space station, creating an airlock. The airlock pressurizes. BC opens the hatch of the Paladin 4 and gets into the airlock, the door to Fortune Station now directly in front of him. He checks a screen built into the docking collar wall for atmospheric information on the other side of the door ahead. If all the electronics still work, he'll be able to tell from here if there's air inside the station. Be nice if there's air to breathe, huh? All the controls look okay. He straps on a breather mask. Hello, Fortune Station. Let's open you up. BC activates the outer door of Fortune Station and steps through into another airlock. Doesn't look so old on the inside. Must be renovations done more recently. Still like 40 years ago. Recently. Everything's relative. He closes the outer door behind him, turns and reads one of the screens in the airlock wall to figure out how to open the inner door. After a few simple commands, the door opens with a gasp. BC lifts up the breather to take his first breath of station air. Yuck! Well, at least there is air. Ooh, smells like tombstones, cemeteries, death, old laundry, gym socks. BC snaps the breather quickly back into place on his face. He steps through the airlock door into the old station and seals the door shut behind him. It's cold. He's in almost total darkness. There is some faint light, 2 frost and dust-covered viewports in the same wall as the airlock let in a little light. It's the docking lights from the Paladin 4, shining in from outside the station. BC steps over to the viewports. Hoisting his shirt cuff up over the heel of his hand, he wipes off a viewport, wiping away frost and dust so he can look through to see the ship outside. He manages to clear away enough to see, soaking his shirt cuff with muddy, icy dust in the process. What he sees is not good. The front of the Paladin 4 on the upper left side, where Captain Longjou and the bridge used to be, is just gone. Looks like someone took a big, burning bite out of it. Poor Mr. Longjou, chewed up by the black teeth of the UIN. Not fair at all, really. The whole life and death thing. He was a good, God-fearing Catholic man. Gone in an instant. Doesn't matter who you are or what you do. You can be gone in an instant. Now me? I bring justice into the equation, really. Thanks to me, the evil ones really do feel the wrath of God. Maybe I balance it out, just a little. Maybe. BC turns away from the window. He sets his hand laser on a broad, unfocused dispersal beam and lights up his surroundings. This part of the station still looks abandoned. He's in a dusty corridor. There's a door just ahead on the right. BC slips quietly through the door into what looks like a common area, with tables and chairs pushed off to one side and stacked on top of each other. There are worn and ripped tapestries on the walls, faded and worn carpet on the floor, a mix of dulled reds and golds and muted purples. There's a control panel on the wall. BC tries it. Nothing happens. Thought we might get some light, at least. No such luck. BC turns off his light. He begins to quiet himself, slow his breathing, so he can listen for the sounds of the station, the hum of its inhabitants, and its machines. I may be able to hear them if I stay quiet, at least get some sense of where they are. Man, it's pitch black dark. Hope my eyes adjust. See if I can see any light leaking in from anywhere. BC waits and listens, and lets his eyes adjust to the darkness. Even as his eyes adjust, he doesn't see much of anything. But he does pick up on the sound of humming equipment, coming from somewhere on the other side of the common area he's in. There is some sound, the hum of machines at work, some sign of life. No real light, though, not here. He gives up and flips his hand laser back on the wide dispersal beam. Guess they aren't using this area yet. Looks like nobody's been in here for years. Well, they aren't fixing up what they aren't using. Makes sense. Plenty of room here. Well, then there's something I don't get. With room to expand, why do they kill off followers? That doesn't make sense. Scapegoats? Rebels among the faithful? Hope they aren't eating each other. Cannibalism would make this really ugly. Hope they're well supplied. I hadn't thought of that as a possible outcome. Taking eating the body of Christ a bit too literally. BC makes his way across the room to where the humming is loudest. The twin metal doors in the wall there are sealed shut. BC puts his ear up to the doors. Definitely where the humming's coming from. They must have gotten as far as the other side of these doors, then stopped and sealed off the rest of this side of the station. They've sealed off this side and beyond for how far I can't tell. They might be using the area on the other side of these doors. Time to invite myself in. BC adjusts the beam on the hand laser down, focusing it into a knife-length, high-intensity cutting tool. He runs the beam along the seals on the door, burning his way through across the top, left to right, then down the right outside edge, along the bottom of the right door, then up the center to the top. The edges of the door glow white as he cuts, and then cool to orange, then red, and then finally dim and cool down. He uses the handle on the door to pull it toward him. It's still warm as he leans it on him. He lowers it slowly, quietly, to the floor. With the door open, he can hear an alarm echoing in the distance on the other side. Shit. Wonder if that's my welcome. Hope not. But it is. Gotta be. BC inspects the door frame. No sign of booby traps. Let's see. BC finds a seat cushion and throws it through the door. Nothing. BC leans through the hatch and looks around. There's light on this side. Looks like old emergency lighting. Area looks just as deserted as where I came from, but more cluttered. A lot of stuff piled up just in front of me here. Must be a storage area. That damned alarm is still going off. BC checks his weapons, adjusts the beam of the hand laser so it will work as a blaster, and edges through the door. He can't get far. A pile of furniture is in his way. He's at the end of a long, wide corridor that curves down and away from him, blocked by stacks of old beds, storage bins, lockers, and shelves. The corridor extends past the point at which the ceiling seems to meet the floor of the corridor, as it bends with the curve of the station down and out of BC's sight. Betcha there are doors up beyond the curve. This is one of the main corridors for this ring section. BC makes his way through the stacked and stored furniture. More ripped and faded tapestries hang on the walls. Worn and tattered carpet almost covers the floor. The further down the corridor I go, there's less and less dust and more stored furniture. This area has seen people more recently than the common area. The emergency lights alone make it seem more inhabited, more used. But it's still obviously not a main part of their habitation here. All this color and fabric. What a weird place. I guess if you're a sultan, you can decorate the place however you please. Purple, red, gold, blue. Interesting taste. That alarm is still going off. That can't be good. Wonder how long until I get company. BC moves beds, bureaus, shelves, and storage bins, and works his way down the corridor. The density of the storage items gets lighter the further he goes, the going easier. This has to be the main corridor of this donut, this ring of the station. They can't use this donut much if they've loaded this main corridor with old furniture and stuff. What's that? Not a sound, but the absence of a sound. The alarm has stopped. BC stops and ducks behind a stack of empty storage bins and waits. He doesn't have to wait long. Two large, bearded men carrying metal pipes appear from down the corridor. One's a redhead, his long hair tied loosely back. The other's olive-skinned with long black hair hanging limply straight down, vaguely Mediterranean. Both wear simple robes and sandals. They look around and approach BC's position. Nice look. What's the style called? Retro Jerusalem Rioter, circa New Testament? This cult must be whacked. Looks like they take this back to the Bible stuff a bit too literally. Sorry, guys. Gonna have to help you meet your maker. BC adjusts his hand laser. He sets the hair trigger. When he squeezes the trigger just slightly, it'll shine a guide beam so he can aim. Tight beam. Hot focus pinpoint. Highly destructive on contact with, say, flesh and bone. I don't think they can see me. Looks like Red is going to pass me first. I'll let him get by, nail his little buddy with the beam, then hit him as he turns around. The redhead turns back to his buddy. They stop. Are you sure it was in this section? Yeah, most of the sensors on this side don't work, but something definitely hit the outside and attached. He says there's another one on board to kill him. They definitely use a capital H when they talk about him. Gotta be the light. Quiet! Red shushes, then whispers. If he's anywhere, he's up ahead in the unused area. I hate the unused area. Isn't it sealed off? Would that stop a determined killer? Wouldn't stop me, Red says, chuckling under his breath. Come on, keep moving, guys. Let's keep going, Red says, and he walks past BC's hiding place. BC whips up the hand laser, guide beam on. He pumps the trigger as the beam crosses the second man's left eye. The man's head jerks back. His feet fly out from under him. His hands reach up to grab at his head as he falls flat on his back to the carpet. He hits hard, dead as he hits. Parts of the back of his head, blood, and burnt bits of brain splattering out across the corridor floor behind him. It takes all of about a second. Red swings around as he hears his friend hit the floor. He can't see BC. As Red starts back to his fallen friend, he crosses BC's guide beam. BC pumps the trigger when the beam hits the center of Red's back. The superheated interior of Red's ribcage explodes out in front of him as he falls. Seared muscle, bone, and vital tissue spraying the wall, the floor, and the body of the first kill. He lands face down at the feet of his fallen friend. Messy. Sorry, guys. BC searches the bodies for some kind of ID, some sort of signifier the cult might use for security. There's nothing on either man, not even a tattoo, at least as far as BC can see. All the men have on them are their robes, sandals, and metal pipes. How can you have a back to basics, back to the Bible, retro cult on a space station anyway? Seems kinda anachronistic to me. I'll have to find out the secret from this light guy before I kill him. BC makes his way past the men, down the corridor, and to the doors they came through. He ducks cautiously through the doors, hand laser at ready. No one's on the other side. The corridor continues on out of sight, around the curve of the station. Still looks deserted. Not as much furniture here. They're still not using much on this side of the station for anything but storage. They must live over on the other wheel. There should be another set of doors I can't see yet. Still beyond the curve, a sort of terminus for this corridor, and one of the connecting corridors leading over to the other wheel. There are 4 of them I could see from the outside and on the plans. Nothing here is very well marked, though. I'm not quite sure where I am. Those 2 back there must have friends around here somewhere, too. They could be just around the curve, too. And no more furniture means no more cover, unfortunately. BC edges along the wall of the corridor until another set of doors does appear. Heavier airlock doors at the end of the corridor. There's glass in the airlock doors, a sure sign of the Sultan's wealth back in the early days of station construction. Luxury. Guess the Sultan liked to splurge. Shit. There's a silhouette in the window. Another cult member. BC stops and watches. He's not even looking in here. Hope that means he'll wait. I want to erase some evidence back there. BC scrambles back the way he came. He gets back to the bodies on the floor of the last corridor. I want to drag them to an airlock, but all this furniture. Well, it's not pretty, but I know what I've got to do. BC gets a small storage locker and sets it down next to the bodies. He sets his hand laser on a broad swath slice setting. The laser's heat cauterizes as he uses the hand laser like a blade to cut through each man's torso and limbs. Like a hot knife through butter, as Mother used to say. Grim imagery, but quick work all the same. Easier to transport. Slice and dice. Neat as you please. God help your humble servant. BC spends 5 minutes cutting up the bodies. After he's done, he starts tossing the pieces into the storage locker. He fills the locker and drags it through the common area back to the airlock where the Paladin is docked. He works as quickly as he can, trying not to think about what he's doing, trying not to get blood all over himself. He opens the airlock and piles in the pieces, then goes back with the locker again and gets what's left. It takes still a 3rd trip to get all of the parts finally piled into the airlock. He keeps as quiet as he can as he commits this gruesome task, watching and listening for the men's silhouetted friend, waiting for him to come from down the corridor to see him at his work. But he doesn't appear. BC gets into the airlock with the gore and cycles the lock through. The outer door opens on the Paladin 4's docking collar. BC heaves the parts through into the collar. He sets the emergency explosive bolts on the docking collar. I'll blow the bolts and cast off the Paladin 4. The men's body parts should float away with the ship. Some might cling to the side of the station, caught up in the spin, but most will hopefully float away. Rest in pieces. Oh my God, I can't believe I just thought that. I'm turning into some kind of cheap horror movie freak. I'm just trying to hide evidence. Collateral damage, they used to call it. Right. Self-defense, too. They had pipes, Your Honor. He rechecks the bolts. He goes back into the station through the airlock and closes it behind him. The bolts fire just as the door clicks into place. BC watches out the viewport as the Paladin, and what's left of the men, float away. Then heads back towards the heavier hatches, back through the common room and down the corridor, past the remnants of his 2 attacker victims, to check on the cult member still keeping watch. As he nears the heavy doors, he sees the cultist looking through the window right at him. Shit. I hope he didn't see me. He had to. BC presses himself up against the right wall next to the doors, just out of the window's line of sight. He waits. There's no sound. He wants to look, but doesn't want the other guy to be staring back, seeing him. BC waits another minute, and then risks a peek. The guy is gone. Gone? Shit, what? Gone for reinforcements? Not a good sign that he's gone. There's noise on the other side of the hatches, the unmistakable sound of a cycling airlock. BC races back along the corridor and ducks into a hiding place. In seconds, he hears voices getting louder. From his hiding place, he can see down the corridor, sees 5 long-haired, bearded men in robes carrying short lengths of metal pipe approaching. Interesting. Weapon of choice here, I guess. Oh, fuck. The cabinet BC's been leaning against collapses forward, falling into the corridor directly in front of the 5. BC falls with it flat onto his face. He looks up just in time to see a length of metal pipe coming down, and then sees nothing else. That was Chapter 15 of the Vatican Assassin 15th Anniversary Edition Special Audio Edition on Glow in the Dark Radio, and we heard Chapter 14 as well. BC's been knocked out cold. After killing 2 guys and Mr. Lonju getting killed. This is really not how this mission was supposed to go. Messy, messy, messy. So now he's in the hands of the cultists and their leader, the Light. When we come back January 7th and 8th, that weekend, we've got a big old Chapter 16, 24 plus minutes of, well, the Light, with Dave Robinson as the Light. So good. His cameo. Oh, man. I just love what Dave does with the character. So you get to enjoy that coming up in a couple of weeks. Back on the 7th and 8th of January, 2023. Until then, a reminder, you can get my brand new book, Ancient Stone Mysteries of New England, in paperback at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Lulu.com, and a lot of other places now on the internet. Just go to ancientstonemysteries.com for more. There's now a Smashwords sale going on, the end of year sale. You can get books for free, like the Vatican Assassin 15th Anniversary Edition, the ebook. Also, Alibi Jones and Alibi Jones and the Sunrise of Her, those ebooks are free. The Vatican Assassin Trilogy and the Alibi Jones Chronological Omnibus are both 50% off for just $2.49, just $2.49. all at smashwords.com. And again, a big thank you to my patrons who help keep this going. And if you want to help too, you can do that at patreon.com/glowinthedarkradio for $2 a month, $5 a month, or $10 a month. And my patrons keep this podcast going, so thank you so much for doing what you do to keep Glow in the Dark Radio glowing. That is all for this week and for this year. I'm your host, your writer and narrator, Mike Luoma. Thank you again for listening to Glow in the Dark Radio. Glow in the Dark Radio. This podcast presentation, copyright 2022 by Michael F. Luoma, and is protected under a Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. CC by NCND 4.0. Music by Kevin MacLeod. You can find his work at incompetech.com and filmmusic.io. Mike's books are available in ebook, paperback, and audiobook, wherever you find books online. Get links and more details at glowinthedarkradio.com and mikeluoma.com. This has been a presentation of Glow in the Dark Radio.